I know this association since 33 years. Because of that, I know that the German proverb, the last is catched by the dogs, is not realizing here. The title of my paper is, What is Work Good For? Anthropological and theological dimensions of human work from the perspective of Christian social teaching. I will present my paper in 15 short points, 9 to the anthropological dimensions and 6 to the theological dimensions. First, although we in Europe spend on average little more than 10% of our lifetime in gainful employment, the term work is familiar to us. Work is what fills people's working day, is an active effort to do what we need to live. Work is the trouble to get bread, whereby bread is a synonym for everything we need to live, including chemistry and theology, art and politics. Work is the prerequisite for human survival. Work is the destiny of man, so much that working is one of the constitutive features of human existence. Work is the main form of human activity. It dominates so much that it is difficult for many people to keep an eye on the other specifically human forms of activity. Always in my lectures about ethics in economics, I ask the students, what do you know for forms of human activity beside work? It was very difficult. Sometimes one or other said sport, play. But beside play, leisure, prayer, the togetherness of lovers are other forms of human activity. Only when man succeeds in keeping all forms of activity in view, in finding a balanced, harmonious relationship between work, play, leisure, and prayer, can he come one step closer to the success of his life. The fact that work is a constituent part of human life can also be seen in the attitudes to work. According to an older Allensbach survey of December 96 in Germany, about 60% would work even if they did not need it financially. Around 20% would not do so, and just about 20% could not make up their minds. Second, what is work? Work is a rational, planned activity of man through which he transforms nature and adapts it to his needs or wants to recognize, protect and promote himself and his social and natural environment. This concept of work includes physical and mental, independent and dependent, paid and unpaid work. By transforming nature and shaping the social and natural environment, man creates goods and services that satisfy his and society's needs. This is the objective dimension of any work. Third, but at the same time, work has a subjective dimension. Man unfolds his talents by working. Work is the medium of its self-realization. Sometime we heard still these quotations from Labourem Exercens by Raymond Gouchot, by Pierre Coulange, by François Henry. But I want to give you these quotations also. Work is a good thing for man, a good thing for his humanity, because through work man not only transforms nature, adapting it to his own needs, but he also achieves fulfillment as a human being, and indeed, in a sense, becomes more a human being. Quotation ends. It is in this subjective dimension that the dignity of human work is founded. Thus, it is not the nature of the work done, its social standing or the income earned that determine the moral value of the work, but the fact that the person who does it is a person. The purpose of the work, in the final analysis, it is always man. Because of this anthropocentric perspective, the subjective dimension of work for Christian social teaching always takes precedence over objective dimension, and work always takes precedence over capital. Fourth, when this anthropological dimension of human work is accepted, it quickly becomes clear what a serious problem unemployment is. It is not primarily the loss of income, but the significantly reduced chances of becoming more human being. Even a 100% compensation for the lack of income from gainful employment through unemployment benefits or social benefits cannot prevent the unemployed from being deprived of two essential dimensions of personal existence: the possibility of social contacts and that of self-actualization through work. Since the 1930s, sociologists have known that long-term unemployment results in enormous social and psychological burdens which cannot be covered by unemployment insurance. Unemployment affects those affected like a disease, Elisabeth Nölle-Neumann stated in connection with the Allensbach Institute after a test for unemployed people. Fifth, the question of whether the fate of the unemployed could be improved if the Constitution contained a right to work must be answered in the negative. Rights include claims which, if necessary, can be brought before a court, but the right to work is not enforceable. It would clash with various freedoms which are part of the foundations of a free constitutional order: the right to free development of one's personality, the right to free choice of job, and the right to private property. No court, no government, and no legislator could grant the unemployed a right to work without violating all these freedoms and ruining the market economy. If, however, the demand for a right to work is intended to express that work belongs to the existential conditions of human development, and that this results in an obligation for the political powers to combat unemployment and to provide favorable framework conditions for economic actions, a central prerequisite of the common good is brought into focus. But even then we cannot speak of a right to work. 6. Work is a good. The unemployed in particular know this, but it is a bonum arduum, a laborious, an arduous, a sweetie good. Christian social ethics does not lose sight of this aspect of work. It emphasizes it in relation to all positions which are limited to the desire to work or the happiness at work, or even, like Karl Marx, dream of man's self-salvation through work. It does not ignore the coercive nature of work, the effort and burden associated with it. The fact that labor is connected with effort does not contradict neither the statement that it is meaningful nor the other statement that it serves self-realization. The effort of work is a well-known reality experienced by all workers, wage earners such as managers, farmers and craftsmen, civil servants, housewives and politicians, chemists and theologians, students and professors. The Christian attributes them to the fall of man, to the human hubris of wanting to be like God. It can be reduced by many inventions, by science and technology, but cannot be abolished. This applies not only to physical, but also to spiritual work. Seventh, a little blick to a book of Teilhard de Chardin. For Teilhard de Chardin, who especially founded on the pain of spiritual work, work requires effort and a victory over inertia. As interesting and spiritual as work may be, one could even say that the more spiritual it is, the more it means a painful birth. Material power to produce or order truth or beauty means an inner agony that robs anyone who dares to do it of the peaceful and secluded life. To be a good worker, man must sacrifice peace and tranquility, but he must also again and again give up his earlier forms of diligence, his art, his thinking, in order to find better ones. Again and again, man must overtake himself and wrest himself from himself. Christian social ethics sees in this aspect of the effort of work not only something negative, but something valuable for man, his maturation and perfection. It belongs to the dignity of man, an unruly environment, an unhospitable nature, a rotten state or a corrupt society, to wrest one's own existence and to use one's strengths to create the economic prerequisite of human culture or a successful life. This does not mean that the unruly environment itself is a good to be cared for. It belongs to the evils with which humans always have to live and cope, and yet never cope. Eighth, but work has no meaning in itself. Rather, it always serves to something. For the economist, work is a production factor, and the product is more important than work. The product or the service is the goal of work. They can achieve an enormous price even if the effort is minimal, a price that is not reasonable in relation to work, but rather determined by talent and demand. Work serves the production of utility values, goods and services. It serves the common good. It is a prerequisite of livelihood and beyond that of leisure. We do not live to work, but we work to live. But even then, when work is regarded as a factor of production, the fundamental insight of Christ's social teaching applies. It must serve man, it must not enslave him. Last point to the anthropological dimensions. Whoever fills his existence with work alone is a slave of work. Such an existence is often marked with the term proletarian. In this sense, also the entrepreneur can become the proletarian, also the politician and the professor. So we should not merge into the work. We enslave ourselves when we make work the sole meaning of our lives. When we let it become the drug with which we flee from ourselves, when we become workaholics. We must preserve and cultivate the ability to distance ourselves from work, not by distracting ourselves, but by giving ourselves up to leisure. The Sabbath commandment belongs to the divine standardization of human life, as does the mandate to rule that includes work. In the sanctification of Sunday, man thanks God for his gift of existence and for his liberation from the yoke of immanence through Jesus' death on the cross and resurrection in Jerusalem. The first theological dimension of work. Work presupposes a specific rule of man over the earth. At the same time, it confirms and develops this dominion. The Creator's mandate in Genesis, subdue the earth to you, means that men should rule over the earth. through servanthood and guardianship. Here two misunderstandings are to be ruled out. The term earth does not only mean the soil, but the whole civilization, and master does not mean, as it occasionally suggested today in ecological debates, exploitation, but cultivation and protection. According to a joint memorandum of the German Bishops' Conference and the Council of the Lutheran Churches of Germany on ecological questions, taking responsibility for creation, the sheep should not only be seen from the butcher's point of view, it must also be seen with the eyes of the shepherd. Second, work which is to be experienced as meaningful presupposes the affirmation, the recognition of the world and history as meaningful. At the beginning of man's work is the mystery of creation. John Paul II writes in Laborem Exercens 12. For a long time I overlooked this sentence. Its meaning only became clear to me when I read a graffito of the dropout scene on a house wall in West Berlin in April 1984. The graffito was, "The world is bad. Why should work be good?" Whoever wants to experience work as good, as meaningful as creation, as contribution to healing and salvation, must acknowledge creation as God's gift, must be able to say, "The world is good." Whoever lacks this recognition of the world, this reverence for creation, who even assumes that the world is bad and that existence is meaningless, has a choice between two positions, that of Sisyphus and that of Prometheus. He will either see work as meaningless, as an eternally equal fruitless burden, and like Sisyphus will agree to roll his boulder up the mountain without reaching his goal. Or he will want work as an instrument of self-salvation and want to rob the gods of fire from heaven. He will begin megalomanically to build a Babylonian tower and run after the illusion of self-salvation. My third point. Holy Mass integrates the fruit of human work in the gifts of bread and wine into sacrifice of Christ. You give us the bread, the fruit of the earth and human work, prays the priest during the preparation of the gifts in Holy Mass, and also you give us the wine, the fruit of the wine and human work. In this way, divine perspectives open up to human work. When the Gospels tell of the miracles of Jesus, they sometimes show that Jesus, when he does miracles, gives active human participation a not inconsiderable place. Before he turned water into wine in the wedding in Cana, the servants had to fill the jars with water. Before he healed the paralytic whom his friends brought to Jesus, they first had to climb on the roof, cover the tiles and let him down. And before he fed the 5,000 men, their wives and children, in a remote place in Galilee, his disciples had to bring the 5 loaves of bread and the 2 fishes. Not that these small human actions were the cause of the miracles. This remains God's grace and God's power. But they make clear Jesus does not act like a magician. He does not act without us. He integrates human work into his miracles. The fourth, the orientation of Christian life towards death and resurrection. His hereafter orientation can therefore neither mean that it no longer cares for the world, that he no longer works, nor that it limits the field of vocations, suitable for Christian witness in certain social or pastoral vocations. As far as the specter of vocations is concerned, among Christians there is occasionally the idea that one must become a nurse, a kindergarten teacher, pastor or social worker if one wants to bear witness to Christian faith in one's everyday life. This is wrong. In every profession, the Christian can, indeed must, bear his witness. He can and must sanctify himself and the world. Last point, to sanctify oneself and the world means, first of all, to take one's profession seriously, not to do mediocre work, neither as a worker, nor as an entrepreneur, nor as a student or professor. It is said that to carry out in a holy way the most varied works, even those which seem to be quite meaningless, means to transform into prayer also the small, the ordinary, the repetitive work, means to combine the struggle of everyday life with daily contemplation. It was said also by François-Henri and Raymond Gouchot. If one wants to serve God, there is no such thing as a trivial or secondary work. All are of great importance. The work is the original destiny of man and a blessing of God. To regard it as a punishment is a deplorable error. Work is also a way of sanctification. To sanctify oneself and the world thus also means to acquire professional competence, to respect the relative autonomy of the field in which the profession is exercised, and to respect its own laws and structures. It is not enough, said John 23 in Pacem in Terris 147, it is not enough to be illumined by the heavenly light of and to be fired with enthusiasm for a cause. They must involve themselves in the work of these institutions and strive to influence them effectively from within. But in a cultural and civilization like our own, no one can insinuate himself into public life unless he be scientifically competent, technically capable, and skilled in the practice of his own professions. It's a quotation from Pacem in Terris. And because I am the last speaker, I want to use the opportunity to thank not only Pavel for this conference, but also his staff of Pascal and Michel. He have done a lot for us and could not hear and discuss. Thank you for your attention.